This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah. So as part of last session, we were introduced you to Python full stack course, right? We were introduced you to Python full stack course. So as part of that, we realized that a typical web application, right? Any typical web application, right, contains what totally three layers it contains. One is presentation layer. Okay, one is presentation layer. Second one is what? Business layer. Third one is what? Data access layer. Yes, any typical web application contains what totally three layers. One is presentation layer, other one is business layer, and one more is what data access layer. So presentation layer will be developed by using what web technologies, right? Presentation layer will be developed by using web technologies. Whereas business layer will be developed by using what backend technologies, right? Okay, backend technologies, right? What are the backend technologies we discussed yesterday? Can anyone please respond?
Python Django in our
Very
course
good. Yes, yes. So
for
persistency,
Python Flask.
very good, very good. Yes, good. So backend technologies are Python and Django and right Flask.
Flask. Yeah.
Okay, good, right. What are the web technologies? We discussed, right? What are the web technologies will come as part of this one?
HTML, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap, React.js. These are the web
Very good.
technologies.
Those technologies will be used for developing, right? Use it for developing what? This presentation layer. Presentation means what? Which can be displayed to the end user. So it may be for asking. Something will be displayed for the end user to enter inputs, or something will be displayed for the end user to show the output, expected outputs. So that is right, called as what? Presentation it is. Okay, good. So after that, right after that, we realized, right, to develop an application, to develop an application. Um, yeah, we were also discussing, right, what is an application. An application is what? It's a collection of programs. An application is a collection of programs. And to write a collection of programs, right, in collection of programs, right, what is a program? From collection of programs, what is a program? It is a set of instructions. So set of instructions is nothing but a program. Why do we write set of instructions? Can anyone please answer? Why do we write set of instructions? As part of any program, why do we write set of instructions? So a program means what? It is a set of instructions, right? So instructions will be written, few instructions will be written for what? Reading input data, and few instructions will be written for what? Right, processing, right? Processing inputted data, and some will be written for what? Producing outputs. So a program is a set of instructions, right, which will be written for what? Reading input data, processing inputted data, and producing outputs. And after that, we discussed that to write a program, two things are important. One is what? Variable, other one is what? Function or method. So in programming languages, variable will be used for storing what? In programming languages, variable will be used for storing what? Data. Whereas function or method will be used for what? Processing data stored through the variables. Okay, variable will be used for storing data, and data stored through the variable will be used for processing data stored through the variable. Okay, so to write a program, a function or method is mandatory, and at the same time variable is mandatory. After that, we try to explore, right, different types of data that is supported by what? Any programming language or Python programming language. So the intention of any programming language is to develop what? Application. So application means what? Processing data. So whether it is a web application or it is a right, whether it is a small scale application. So in general, applications are of two types: small scale apps and larger scale applications. Yes, in general, apps are of two types, small scale applications and larger scale applications. So in what sense we will call an application as a right larger scale or a, right in what sense we will call an application as a small scale application? Let's take this one, Gmail. So at the time of creating Gmail account, right? So they will ask you so many details, right? Like your first name, last name, gender, mobile number, country, languages you can speak, where you are living, what is your mobile number, alternative mobile number, right? Expected email ID, expected username, right? Alternative email ID. They will ask you, right? So they not only ask you the data for the first time when you are creating account, they will store that data as long as you are the account holder of that Gmail. So how they are storing your data like you, they should store what millions of customers data across the world. So to store all this data, huge amounts of memory is required. So that's where our Gmail application is what maintaining what huge amounts of data. That's where it is called as a large scale application. So in what sense we will decide whether an application is a small scale or large scale based on the data usage. So your Amazon is what best suitable for what larger scale application. ATM is what best suitable for what larger scale application. Gmail also larger scale application. What are the small scale applications? Calculator, Paint app, PDF, MS Word, MS Excel, PowerPoint. They are comes under what small scale application because they need to store what small amount of data. So thus applications are divided into what small scale applications and larger scale applications. Okay, very good. So Python will be used for developing what both small scale applications and larger scale application. So Python not only will be used for developing what small scale applications and larger scale applications. Python will be used for developing what applications using data science, applications using artificial intelligence, applications using what machine learning, applications using what data analysis, data analytics. So these are all the areas, right, where Python is recommended to use to develop what applications. So when compared with the C, C++, Java, Python, right, Python can be used to develop applications in more domains. If you take C or C++, right, when you take C or C++, they will be used for developing applications only what offline applications, right? And if you go to Java, this will be used for developing right which applications offline as well as online applications. Right? When we comes to Python, right? Python will be used for developing what? All right, offline apps, online apps, right? Online apps, right? Next one, data science apps, machine learning apps. Okay, machine learning apps, right? Artificial intelligence. Okay, artificial intelligence apps. Good artificial intelligence apps. And the other thing is what data analysis apps, data analytics apps. Okay, right. Right. Scientific applications, right, etc. There are many regions. Okay, there are many regions, right, where Python is recommended to use. Right, Python is recommended to use. So you may have wondered, sir, why C and C++ Java are not recommended to develop applications in many domains when compared with what Python programming language. So here, data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, they're right. They are all very right, rich at what processing data in very shortest manner. So they're all there to process the data. They're all there to process the data. So processing data means what? For example, if there are 80 million customers for Bank of America, okay, if there are 80 million customers for Bank of America, from that, if you swipe your ATM card, right, from the 80 million, right, account holders, right, your data should be bring out in very short span of time. So right, processing time should be very less. Then we can say the performance of the application is what very faster when compared with other programming languages. So Python applications will be executed very faster than all other programming language related apps. So the reason is, yeah, do you know anyone the reason for that? Why Python applications will be executed very faster than all other programming language related apps? Can anyone reason for it? Ashin and Vinith? If you know, you can answer, right?
I don't have idea, sorry.
Okay, okay, no problem. Just I'm checking, right? Just I'm checking. If you don't know anyhow, I'm here to help you out. Okay, so Python applications will be executed very faster than all other programming languages because Python supports very less lines of code. Okay, Python supports what? Very less lines of code, right? Yeah, please take screenshot for this. I'm going to explain why Python supports very less lines of code. You're done? Right. Right. Control S. Right. Now see, I'm writing some small piece of code. I'm going to explain you the reason why Python applications will be executed very faster than all other programming language related apps. Right. See, I'm writing some program in C language. I'm writing some program in C language. So stdio.h. If you don't understand also, don't worry about it. Okay, get it. So int sum comma num1 comma num2 it is. I'm creating a program. For adding two numbers. Okay, I'm creating a program for adding two numbers, right? So sum equals to 0 down the line. Int num1 equals to 10. Int num2 equals to 20. Right, so sum equals to num1 plus num2 it is. Down the line, printf percentile d. Okay, percentile d svm sum. This will display the outputs. Okay, this is what code I have written in C language. In any programming language, the code written by the programmer is called as what? Source code. In any programming language, the code written by the programmer is called as what? Source code. If you are able to read source code of any programming language, that programming language is called as a high level programming language. If you are able to read source code of any programming language, that is called as what? High level programming language. We can read it. See, include is the English word, stdio is the English word, h is English alphabet, void is English word, main is English word, right? So in general, in high level programming languages, we will construct or we will create programs by using what? Some English words, some special symbols and numbers. Okay, by using some English words, special symbols and numbers, we will write programs in what? High level programming languages. What is high level programming language? In which programming language we are able to read the source code? They are all called as what? High level programming languages. In C, we are able to read its source code. That's where it is called as a high level programming language. What is source code? In any programming language, the code written by the programmer is called as what? Source code. So in C language, I have written a small piece of code for adding what? Two numbers, right? Now the same code I'm going to write in Python programming language for adding two numbers. Okay, see how it looks. Yes. See here. num1 equals to 10, num2 equals to 20. Okay, num2 equals to 20. Okay, print sum is. Okay, print sum is, right? Num1 plus num2. That's it. So this is what Python source code. In Python also you are able to read what source code. In Python also you are able to read source code. That's where it is called as what high level programming language. So this is what Python source code, where this is what C source code. Okay, this is called as what C source code. Okay, this is called as a C source code, right? That's it, right? Now see, right, how many lines, right? How many lines are required to write a program for adding two numbers in C language? Around some. How many lines? Can you count it down?
9.
9 lines, right?
Yes.
Okay, so to write a program for adding two numbers in C language, right? It took how many lines of code? 9 lines. And how many
Yes.
lines of code required in Python
Just 3 lines.
when compared with right? See, this to do the same task, right? But very less lines
Yeah.
of code, right?
Yeah.
So this is only for adding two numbers. Tomorrow, if you take any other program, if you take 100 lines of code to write a task in other programming language, when you come to Python, right, it comes to around some 15 to 20 lines. So if a number of instructions are less, computer will computer need to invest what less amount of time to process, right, those instructions, so that they will be all will be executed fastly and output will be right given to us very quickly. So if number of instructions are less to write a program in any programming language, right, computer will take less amount of time to process all of them because they are less in quantity. Okay, they will be executed quickly and output will be shown to us very fastly. So this is the reason why Python applications are right very faster when compared with what other programming languages, as Python supports what very less lines of code when compared with what other programming language related, right, other programming languages. Okay, good. So this is the only reason why NASA people are recommending Python in their application development. So you might have heard about NASA, right? They will experiment satellites. So they want their application to be executed very faster. Then only they can experiment satellites. So in their application, right, they are highly recommending Python to develop, right, in their application development. And there are other regions, right? YouTube is using what? Django. Okay, YouTube is using, right, Django, which is a Python applications. Okay, very good. Dropbox is using, right, Python along with Django in their applications, right? And NASA is using Django in their application development. And uh, right, Dropbox, NASA, right, and even Google Drive is also using what, right, Python along with Django in their applications. Why? Right, Google Drive is what, the place where you need to pick out the required data from the available sets of data. So Google Drive will be used for storing what data. Nowadays they are selling, right, some data for us, right, to store the photos. So from those photos, right, whichever you are searching for, right, that should be bring out very fastly. So that's where, right, uh, right, Python along with Django will be nowadays used in many application areas. Okay. Now, are you clear why Python applications will be executed very faster than all other programming language related apps?
Yeah.
Okay, good, right. Now, just let me tell you, right, I want you to understand the real usage of, right, Python. So Django, right? Yes. See, okay, see Instagram, right? So Django helps this popular social network handle large amounts of data and user interactions, right? Pinterest. Okay, Pinterest, right, this popular app, right, uses Django to handle what large amounts of content, right? Spotify, right, Django is used to integrate web applications with what? Python. Next one, Discuss, right? Discuss and a Dropbox. Mozilla Foundation, right, is also using it for what? Right, web application development, right? And Bitbuckets. So this is a cloud-based right, Git repository, one of the most heavily loaded Django web apps. Okay, so these are the areas, right, where Python is highly recommended to use. So what are Django applications? So which apps are built with right Django, right? See here, see the list. Yeah. So it's like thong, right? I don't need cookies. Yes. Yeah. See, Instagram, Spotify, right? YouTube. So YouTube is also right. Need to see through YouTube we will search for a video, right? So that is what one of the right millions of available data sets, right? From that it should be bring out for us with the more accuracy, right? More accuracy. That is also what a kind of what data processing. Right? It's a kind of data processing. That's where Django right is a big help to the YouTube terms, right? YouTube team of developers, right? Allowing them to act right quickly. Okay, and see the Washington Post, right? NASA is using Django, right? As I said, and see Google is also using Django in their many of their products. Okay, one more, right? Which is a money transfer app in USA, right? Okay, so it's a one of the payment service, right? So people are using right Django in their application development. In the similar way, right? Dropbox, Mozilla Firefox, right? Internet browser, right? So people are using Django in their application, right? Pinterest. Okay, these are the very few areas, right? I am not saying that these are the only things, right, which are surviving on Python Django. Okay, there are many areas. There are many areas, right, where Django framework is recommended to use. So overall, our Python along with the Django. Okay, right, overall Python along with the Django. See, Python plus Django. Okay, Python along with the Django framework, right, will be used for developing what web applications, right? And other one, Python plus Flask framework. Okay, together will be used for developing what web applications. So as I said yesterday, right? But as I said yesterday, there are two ways to develop web applications in Python. So one is using Django framework we will develop. The other one is what using Flask framework along with the Python. So Python will be integrated with the Django framework to develop web application. Python will be integrated with Flask framework to develop what? Web applications. Yeah, thus there are two flavors. Right. So as I told yesterday, there are some issues with the Django framework. There are some challenges where Django is confidently face them. So in those areas, right, we will go with the Flask. So Flask framework is invented, right, to solve right the challenges which are not fulfilled by the Django framework in the process of developing what web applications. Okay. So the intention of any web application is what? The intention of any web application nowadays is what? To process the data in an effective manner. Okay, in an effective manner. Okay, good. So handling data is right, the crucial, right? The handling data is what crucial aspect in any web application developments. Okay, good. So that's what yesterday we started, right? Exploring about, right? So variable will be used for creating what? Variable will be used for storing what data, where there will be different types of data. And what are the different types of data yesterday we discussed, right? Like 14 types of data supported by Python programming language like this. So let me show you that one. So instead of writing it, right, it's better to take from there. Yes. See here. So in Python web application development, right, we may need to handle right integer data, decimal data, right logical data, complex data. There are some mathematical applications, right, which are handling what complex numbers. Right. Every web application may need to go with what, especially complex number data will be used in what, like scientific application development, like designing scientific calculators. In those areas, right, that will be used. So string data can be used to wherever, right? In any web application, right, string data must and should be used. And this is what data, right? Python web application is going to handle data, means what group of values or a collection of values, right? So their data structures also highly recommended to use. So in general, any typical web application is going to support, right, these data structures, right? They are going to support data structures, right? And any typical web application, right, need to store what audio files, video files, images or photos. That will be taken care by the bytes data or bytes array data. And range is there to generate what integer numbers which are in sequence. So whenever you want to generate any integer number that are in sequence, for example, you want generate from 20 to 90, or you want generate from 1 to 11, or you want generate from 1000 to 10,000, sorry, 1000 to right some 10,000. So in these areas, right, we will go with what range function. So how it will be done, right, when time comes, right, we will be look into that. And there is something called non-data type. Okay, so these are the totally 14 data types that are supported by Python programming language. Right, 14 data types that are supported by Python programming language. Okay, so now let us focus on this data. Okay, now see data. Where are we storing data? In a variable. Where do we create variable? Can anyone please answer? Ashim or Vinith? Where do we store? Where do we create variable? Where do we create variables? In a program, right? See, application is what,
Yeah,
it's a collection of programs. Program contain what, variable and function or method, right? Very good. So where do we create a program? Within the application. So
application.
who
Yeah,
has who has to process our application? Who
User.
has to process? Who has to process our application? See, not user. Computer has to process our application with the help of operating system, right?
Yeah.
Um, you know, as a user, he will give some commands. As a user, he will develop application and he will give, right, he will store the application in the computer memory and he will give some commands to the computer to execute it. Then computer has to execute it by following your commands to execute the application, right? You know,
Yeah.
if you want execute any application through computer, if you want execute any application through computer, right, that computer must and should store the application within the computer memory. That application should store the application within the computer memory, where computer memory will be of two types. Computer memory will be of what? Two types. Right? One is what? Hard disk memory. Right? The second one is what? RAM memory. Okay, right. So one is hard disk memory, other one is what? RAM memory. If you look at your mobile phone, right, internal storage you have, right, RAM memory you have. In the similar way in computer also, right? Hard disk memory or SSD memory and RAM memory. So any computer device in the world should contain two types of memories: RAM memory and hard disk memory or internal storage. Okay, fine. So now data we are storing in a variable will be created inside a program. Right, program is a part of what application? Collection of programs will form what application? Who has to process our application? Computer with the help of operating system has to process our application. So if computer wants to process any application, first computer should store that application within the computer memory. So means indirectly what? Your data is going to occupy some space in the computer memory. Data is going to occupy some space in the computer memory, where computer memory will be of what? Two types: hard disk memory and RAM memory. Can anyone please answer? This hard disk memory and RAM memory both are limited or unlimited?
Limited.
Yeah, both are limited.
Very good, both are limited. You know, RAM memory is very limited when compared with what? Hard disk memory. So hard disk memory is very huge when compared with RAM memory, but that is also a limited. So means what? You're believing that your data is going to occupy computer memory, where computer memory is limited means what? We need to take care that our data has to occupy computer memory as less as possible. If it is necessary, then only it should consume data. Unnecessarily, your data should not occupy computer memory. Right, our data unnecessarily should not occupy computer memory, because see, anything that is limited in our life we will use it as less as possible, right? Let us take milk. Milk is very precious when compared with water. Do we use milk like water? Right, no, right? We won't use milk like water because milk is precious when compared with water. That's where we will use it as less as possible. Right, we will use it as less as possible. In the similar way, when computer memory is limited, right, we should not waste it. The data that you are going to represent in your program should not, right, consume computer memory unnecessarily. Right, unnecessarily, where Python is very strict about what? Right, memory management. Okay, memory management. So Python will, right, Python will take care. Python will take care about what? Python will take care about what? Memory management. Python will manage, right, memory in a very efficient way when compared with what? C++ and Java programming languages, because Python is developed by looking at C++ Java. So in C++ Java there is a memory wastage. In C, there is a lot of memory wastage. Some of it is addressed as part of C++. In C++ also still there is some memory wastage, right? Some of it will be addressed as part of Java. In Java also there is some memory wastage, right? That is totally addressed in Python. Okay, so Python is invented, right, by looking at what the other programming languages also. That's where what C++, Java, right? What C++, Java, JavaScript, shell script, modular 3 programming languages can do. The same thing can be done by using what? Python programming languages. Okay, keep it aside. Now come here. So you are believing that your data is going to occupy computer memory, where computer memory is what? Two types: hard disk and memory, which is very limited. So that's where, right, we need to save the computer memory. Right, our data has to occupy computer memory as less as possible. So my question to you here is, why people always will give us in general when compared with the hard disk and RAM memory? See, I have two computers with me. In one computer, so in one computer, my internal storage, right, a hard disk is 102 GB and RAM is 16 GB. And I have another computer which is very old one. In that, hard disk is 512 GB, whereas RAM is 2 GB. Okay, and I also have a mobile phone. Right, I'm using a mobile phone for whom internal storage is 256 GB, whereas RAM is what? 8 GB. Okay, right, RAM is 8 GB, and I also have another laptop, right, which is having 128 GB internal storage and right 3 GB RAM. So if you look at any computer in the world, your mobile phone is also a computer. Your laptop, hard disk, right? Your laptop, right, and desktop, right? These are all what examples of what computers. So if you look at any computer in the world, they are giving more amount of hard disk memory and very less amount of RAM memory, right? So I want to know the reason from you why people are giving very less amount of RAM memory.
So RAM memory is for processing, basically, I guess. No? Coming to hard disk, we'll be storing data,
RAM memory will be used for what?
processing,
Very good. Processing what?
processing the data, what we have,
Yes,
like
processing
applications
data
and all
that
that stuff.
belongs to the application, right?
Yeah,
Okay, processing data that belongs to applications. So why
application.
RAM memory will be used for processing? Processing data belongs to an application.
So the application data will be stored in RAM, I guess.
No, not like that. See here, where RAM memory is there, there OS will be installed automatically.
Okay.
When you purchase a computer, right, it will come with what hard disk memory and RAM memory, right? you know
Yeah,
Nowadays, right, we are purchasing computers with the built-in operating systems, right? But
yeah,
when I was a student, right, or when I was right around some right 20 years back, if we go right 20-25 years back, right, at that time just they will sell the right, they will sold the computer, so which
yeah.
don't have operating system, right?
Operating
So
system. Yeah,
we need to purchase it, right, and we need to install operating system into that. So when you try to install operating system into that, right, so operating system automatically will be installed into the folder where RAM memory is there,
okay,
because RAM will be used for processing the data. This is the reason why our applications that are there in our computer will be processed under RAM memory always. So where
okay,
RAM is there, there OS will be installed. Where OS was installed, there Python virtual machine along with the interpreter will be installed.
okay.
Right. See here, you know, See, imagine earlier you learned C language. Where for the very first time you purchased a laptop for learning C language. After learning C, then you want to learn Python. Now, if you want to learn Python, right, you're going to use the same laptop that you purchased for learning C, or do you purchase one more laptop for learning Python?
We'll be using the same laptop.
Then how your computer will realize that earlier, right, this guy used, right, C, that this guy learned C language and practiced C programs, this time he is practicing Python programs. How your computer will realize that, how it will differentiate
Yeah.
that?
I think, as you said, it will be like all the programming language will be stored in operating system. So maybe
uh,
because of that,
no yeah, see, if you want to practice C programs in your computer, you need to install C software, right? To practice Java programs in your computer, you need to install Java software, right? To practice Python programs in your computer, you need to install what? Python software. So this is the reason why we will install a software. If you want to use a Skype, you need to install its software in your computer. If you want to use Gmail, you need to install it. But in case of Gmail, right, automatically that will come and set. Okay, but if you want to practice Python programs in your computer, you need to install Python software. That software will inform to your computer that, right, you are practicing what Python programs, right? If you while learning C, you will install C software, right? Then that software will inform to the computer that you are used to learn what C language at that time. So Python software means what? Python virtual machine along with interpreter will comes into our computer. This is the one who will inform to your operating system, thereby computed that this program was constructed by following what? Python syntax rules. So all programming languages are what? Strictly syntax oriented programming languages. If you look at C, C++, Java, Python, .NET, PHP, Perl, these are all what? strictly syntax oriented programming language. Syntax means what? Rule. See, if you want to live in USA, right, you have to follow the rules. We should not disturb the neighbors, right? We should not disturb the fellow people, right? We have to follow the rules, means you need to follow the syntax. So in programming language, that rule is called as what? Syntax. So you will construct a program according to C, right? While learning C language, you will write a program or you will construct a program according to C syntax. Right? While learning Python, you will develop your Python program by following what? Python syntax. So Python syntax is understandable to whom? Python virtual machine along with interpreter, which is a Python software. So you are installing Python software into your computer means what? You are installing Python virtual machine along with interpreter into your computer. Okay, so this will inform about your Python program to whom? To the, right, to the operating system, thereby the computer. Okay, fine, right. Next. Now this Python software will understand what? Python application. So Python application contains what? Python program. Sorry, Python program. Python program contains what? Variable. So variable contains what? Data. Okay, variable contains what? Data. Okay, that's it, right. So whom we will request to execute a Python program or Python application? We will request Python software. That is nothing but what? Python virtual machine along with the interpreter. So we will develop Python program and we will ask Python virtual machine or interpreter to execute the Python programs. Okay, so the question here is, so you may be getting right doubt. So where do we store? Yes, you may be getting doubt like this, right? Where do we store Python programs? In the hard disk memory we will store it, or in the RAM memory we are going to store it, right? Let me tell you a small scenario for this. Okay, right. Imagine I developed a Python application which is nothing but Gmail or ATM application. Let me see. Yes. So we developed, right, our Gmail application and ATM application by using what? Python programming language. So to store the data of ATM application, how much amount of memory is needed? To store the data of ATM application, how much amount of memory is required? Imagine 500 GB memory is required to store the entire data of what? ATM application. Now imagine we are going to execute our computer. We are going to execute our ATM application, right, through the computer whose hard disk memory is 512 GB and whose RAM memory is 2 GB. We are going to execute our ATM application through the computer whose hard disk memory is 512 GB, whereas RAM memory is how much? 2 GB. So RAM memory is doing very precious activity, right? Running the applications, right? That's where it is very, right, costly. It is doing very important activity. Storing an application, right, permanently is not a great task. Running an application is a great task. For example, you install Skype in your application. You are not using it. What is the use of it? Storing it. You installed, right, Skype, right, and you are storing it in the hard disk, right, but you are not, right, using it. There is no use of it. Or you installed one mobile banking application, right, into your mobile phone. You are not using it. There is no use of installing it. You are installing an application into your computer means what? Tomorrow or day after tomorrow in the future you are going to reuse it. Then only you will install it. Okay. So if you want to execute ATM application through the computer whose hard disk memory is 512 GB and RAM memory is 2 GB, right? Now tell me under which memory we have to store our application?
Hard disk.
Why we need to store our application in the hard disk?
It's like just a storage. So
To store the entire data of ATM application, how much memory is required?
it's like 5 to 500 GB.
But how much is there with our, right? Is it possible to store it in the RAM memory?
No, no.
Why?
It's like just for processing, right? So
It is very less. It is doing
yeah.
some precious activity, right? That's where anything that is precious in our life always will available for us in less quantity. So 2 GB is not enough to store the entire data of ATM application. The only option for us is to store the data. Our entire ATM application is what? A hard disk. So Python is recommended to develop what? Mostly larger scale applications, where larger scale applications need to handle what? Huge amounts of data. That's where we will store our applications within the within the hard disk memory. But who has to execute this ATM application? Python virtual machine along with the interpreter has to execute it. But here Python virtual machine is working under the control of OS, where OS is working under the control of RAM memory. So Python virtual machine is working in a different place, where application was kept in a different place. They are two different places. Okay, they are two different places. So whenever we request Python virtual machine to execute a Python application, so here Python application means what? Here it is a ATM application. So within ATM application is what? Yeah, contains what? So ATM application contains what? So many customers related data. So here per customer. So ATM application contains what? Per customer data. Okay, right. So per customer related data will be stored through what? Different variables. And those variables are going to store the data of that customer. Okay, leave it. Now, whenever you will swipe your ATM card, whenever you swipe your ATM card, what will happen? Right, what will happen? So that ATM will read what? That ATM application will read what? Your card number, expiry date, name on the card, and CVV number. These details it will read. Right, so our ATM need to compare these details with what? Already details that you submitted at the time of account creation with the bank. So where it is there, the data will be stored in the database. Your ATM application will store the data permanently in the what? Database. So, right, whenever you swipe your card means whenever you request Python virtual machine along with interpreter to process the data by swiping your ATM card, it will pull the data from right database of that application, and it will compare the data with our data. Right, right, compare with the data that you provided. If it matches, right, then it will start processing. Okay, it will start right processing the data. Okay, right, when it right data matches, right, then it will start processing the data. Okay, fine. So now here whenever you request Python virtual machine to process the data, so what Python virtual machine will do? Right, what Python virtual machine do? Right, what it will do? It will try to load, it will try to search for the application. Whenever you request Python virtual machine to execute a Python program, what it will do? It will try to search for the application. It will check where application was kept. So where it is kept, we will ask Python virtual machine along with interpreter by telling the path of the application. Right. So path of the application will be informed. By informing path of the application to the Python virtual machine, we will ask the Python virtual machine to execute the Python program. Then Python virtual machine, by following that path, it will try to load the application. So it will load the application. From where to where? From hard disk to RAM where Python virtual machine is running. So when it will load, whenever you request. Right. So it will load the application from hard disk to RAM where Python virtual machine is running. So once your application loaded, then it will start processing it. Okay, good. So now with the RAM memories, how much memory is there with RAM? Total 1 GB, right? Out of 1 GB, 1 GB will be given for running data related to operating system, because operating system is also application that also contains data. Okay, that also contains data. To process that, memory is required. So 1 GB is given to that. The other left GB is given to whom? Python virtual machine, right? The other 1 GB will be given to Python virtual machine. Now with the Python virtual machine, how much memory is there? Only 1 GB is there. Whom we are requesting to execute? We are requesting Python virtual machine to execute ATM application. But how much memory is required for the entire ATM application? 500 GB memory is required. Who has to execute our Python application? Virtual machine has to execute it. If Python virtual machine wants to execute it, right, it will load your ATM application from a hard disk to RAM where Python virtual machine is running. So if it loads, what is the problem here? With the who has to execute? Python virtual machine has to execute the application. Who has to allocate memory for the loaded application? Python virtual machine has to allocate memory. So whenever you request Python virtual machine to execute the ATM application, right, what Python virtual machine will do, it will try to load the application. So when the time of loading the application, Python virtual machine will realize that, oh my God, 500 GB memory is required to store the entire data of ATM application, where with me 1 GB is required, which is impossible to load, right, which is impossible to store the entire data of ATM application, which is loaded from hard disk memory to RAM memory where Python virtual machine is running. So this is impossible. So total 500 GB is required. With the Python virtual machine, only 1 GB is there. That's where there is two types of loading. Python will follow two types of loading. Static loading will follow. The other one is what? Dynamic loading. This will follow. Okay, static loading and dynamic loading Python will follow, right? So what is static loading? As part of static loading, the whole app will be loaded. The whole app will be loaded from hard disk memory to where? Hard disk memory to where? RAM memory, where JVM is running at runtime. Okay, runtime or execution time. Okay, that's it, right? In dynamic loading, what will happen? Entire application will be divided into parts.
What is
Okay,
this
entire.
JVM?
Oh, sorry, I said JVM. Sorry. This is a Java virtual machine in case of Java. I am teaching even Java also, right? So by mistake, right, it came here. Okay, sorry for the inconvenience. It's a PVM, right?
Yeah,
Python
PVM,
virtual machine.
virtual
Okay, thank
machine.
you. Yes. By mistake, right, if any time I said, right, JVM, please understand it as PVM. Okay, good, right. Now there is another thing called dynamic loading. you know in dynamic loading, the whole app will be divided into parts. In dynamic loading, the whole app will be divided into parts. How it will be done? For example, if there are 80 million customers are there for ATM for Bank of America, each customer will be treated as one program. Okay, each customer means what? There are 80 million parts in our program. So this is the reason through ATM machine at a time only one customer is allowed to do the transaction. See, when you try to withdraw money from the ATM, so before in front of you someone is already there, right, who is trying to withdraw, you have to wait. So both people are not simultaneously allowed to withdraw money through ATM machine. Okay, right, because of the right issues with the RAM memory. Right. So how that will be done? Let us see now. So the whole app will be divided into what parts? So here the part of app will be loaded. Loaded from where to where? From hard disk memory to hard disk memory to RAM memory, RAM memory, where Python virtual machine is running. At what time? At run time or execution time. Okay, at run time or what? Execution time. So part of, now tell me, so when there is no chance of loading the entire ATM application, it's better to load what part, right? This is the reason why, right, each customer will swipe his ATM card. See, as a customer, when you want to process your details, is it possible, is it good to load remaining 80 million customer related data from hard disk to RAM where Python virtual machine? No, right. When you want to process your data, it's better to load your data only from hard disk to RAM where Python virtual machine is, right, running. So that is the best thing. So, right, so Python will be used for developing what larger scale applications which are going to demand what huge amounts of data. That's where they will be kept always in the hard disk. But who has to execute them? Python virtual machine has to execute them. Where Python virtual machine will be installed under the control of OS. So where OS is installed, there Python virtual machine will be installed, because operating system is the one who will execute any software that you are using in your computer. So all softwares that you are using in your mobile phone, in your computer, will be executed under OS. So where OS is installed, there Python virtual machine will be installed. Who has to execute Python program? Python virtual machine has to execute it. So whenever you request Python virtual machine to execute any Python program, Python virtual machine will try to load your application from hard disk to RAM where Python virtual machine is running. But the problem here is what? Right, through static loading, it need to load the entire application, which requires 500 GB, which is not there with what Python virtual machine. That's where, right, it won't go for static loading, where Python recommends what? Dynamic loading. So in dynamic loading, what will happen? Hard disk contains what? 80 million customer data, but through ATM machine at a time only one customer will swipe the card. So that customer related data only will be pulled from hard disk to the RAM where Python virtual machine is running. That's very small part of the data application, right? For that, that 1 GB is enough to store it. Right. Okay. So your data, it's a data. When you store it in the hard disk, it's going to occupy hard disk memory. If you move it if you move it into RAM, right, then it's going to occupy some space in the RAM. So for that loaded data, Python virtual machine has to allocate memory. 1 minute, where is my cursor? Yes. Python virtual machine has to allocate memory for that loaded data. See, as part of Python app, Python per customer related data is nothing but a Python program that contains variable. Variable contains data. So this, for this data, memory allocation needed. Needed, right? This memory allocation is called as what? Object or instance. So, when you learn Python, right, through internet or on your own, or so from some other people, right, earlier, so before my class, so you might have heard about object or instance, right? Yeah, any one of you, Ashim or Vinith, did you ever heard about something called object or instance in Python?
Mm, yeah, I guess so.
So object or instance means what? It's a memory allocation for loaded data at runtime or execution by whom? By Python virtual machine. So at what time this object or instance will be created? Only whenever you request Python virtual machine to execute Python program. For example, up to 1 year you don't want it, right? You don't want to, right, access your ATM details. Then your data will never be pulled from hard disk to RAM where Python virtual machine is running. If you want process, right, now it will be loaded. Whenever you swipe, then only it will be loaded. So whenever you want to process details, then only it will be loaded, then only it is going to occupy memory. That's where it is called as a dynamic memory allocation. So any dynamic memory allocation is called as what? Object or instance. Object or instance means what? It's a memory allocation for loaded data, right, of the variables that are created inside the program. At what time? At runtime or execution time. Once object created, once object created for the loaded data, from that object your functions will start accessing the data. So thus your program will be executed. So your functions will be executed at runtime within the computer RAM memory after the creation of the object. Sir, why we need to create object, sir? Why we need to create object? Computer can understand what zeros and ones. Computers are designed to understand what zeros and ones. Okay, right. So we need to convert our data, integer data, decimal data, right? List data, set data. We need to convert into zeros and ones. Then only, so object contains
Hello.
what memory. Sorry, yes, please. Hello. Yes. Do you want to ask anything? Okay, right. I think it happened unexpectedly. Right. So object or instance means what? Your data will be converted into zeros and ones. For the zeros and ones, to store the zeros and ones, some amount of memory is required. Why our data will be converted into zeros and ones? Right. Computer can understand what? Only zeros and ones, which is a binary code. Right. Binary data or binary code. So that's where our data will be converted into zeros and ones. For that, some memory will be allocated. That memory allocation is called as what? Object or instance. So object or instance means what? It's a memory allocation for loaded data, right, regarding to the variables that are created as part of the loaded program by Python virtual machine at runtime or execution time. Whose memory will be used to create this object or instance? Python virtual memory. So sum of RAM memory is given to whom? Python virtual memory, Python virtual machine. Python virtual machine will invest this 1 GB memory to store that loaded data. Okay, to store that loaded data. Such memory allocation is called as what? Object or instance. So object or instance means what? It's a memory allocation for loaded data. So once object or instance created, functions will try to access data from the object or instance. So where this object or instance will be created? Python contains 1 GB memory, right? This 1 GB memory is a space. See, your house is located right at one unique address. Your house is having one unique address, right? Your house is located what? Unique location in the space in your city. In the similar way, with the Python virtual machine, 1 GB memory is there, right? In that 1 GB memory space, at some location, memory will be reserved for this word object or instance. This is exactly like this. When you book a flight, right, for journey, for you, one ticket will be reserved. One seat will be reserved at a unique location in that space. So that flight is what? It's a space. It contains some space to let each passenger to sit. So for that, they will allocate what? Right, some seats. They will reserve some seats for everyone. One seat will be, every seat will have some unique number, right? Every seat will have some unique number, right? So in that unique place, right, some space will be reserved for us. Right. How many passengers will be there in a flight? There may be 500, 200, 300. For all of them, seats will be reserved at what? Different unique locations. In the similar way, in a Python program, if you created 10 variables, for 10 variables, memory will be reserved at 10 different locations, at 10 different unique locations. Can we see that unique location where memory was reserved for storing the data of a particular variable? As we can see that. That is called as address or identity. Who will give that address or identity? Python virtual machine will give one unique address or identity to reserve the memory of that variable, that particular variable. On whose name ticket will be reserved in the flight? On the passenger name, ticket will be booked in the flight. In the similar way, on whose name memory will be reserved for a right, memory will be reserved for the data on the name of variable which is storing the data. Okay, in your program, if x equals to 10, so for allocating memory for the 10, memory will be reserved on the name of whom? Variable x. So this object or instance will be created on the name of the variable at runtime or right execution time by Python virtual machine. but by Python virtual machine. So are you clear up to here?
Yes, I have one small doubt. Where exactly the
Please.
static loading is used?
This will be used for small scale applications.
Okay.
Okay, static
So
loading,
when it
like a calculator, calendar, PDF, right? There are small scale applications. They will demand small amount of memory,
okay.
right? So Python recommends static loading for smaller scale applications, and Python recommends dynamic loading for what? Larger scale applications.
Okay. And one more thing. How is
Please.
exactly is this like hard disk memory and RAM memory differentiated? I mean, like internally, how exactly it works, like this RAM memory. So coming to hard
You
disk, we'll
know,
be just storing the data. How about
yes,
RAM?
yes. And RAM will be used for processing the applications that are right that are installed in our computer with the help of operating system.
Yeah, but like, will there be any coding done in that RAM memory too, internal?
Okay, okay. No, no, no. See, that will be done at right, system level that will be done, right? We need not worry about it. For example, how we need not
Okay.
worry about it, right? Let me tell you. See, you want to use, right? You want to use one mobile application in your computer. For that, just you will install mobile app, right? Do you do any additional configurations for that?
No, no.
No, right. So that will be taken care by what? Your operating system will take care of it. Your operating system is very intelligent. Which application you are, right? You are installing into, you are accepting into your computer, where that should be executed, what type of application it is, right? So in RAM memory, where it, right, how much amount of memory it is going to occupy from the RAM memory, everything will be managed by the operating system. It will take care of it.
Okay.
Okay, are you clear now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, kids. Right. Okay. So let's stop here for today. Continuation, right? Right. Object onwards, right? Tomorrow, we will be into programming part. So tomorrow we are going to see the first program. So till now, the prerequisite for starting Python programming is over. Okay.
Yeah, I have like few more questions. So,
Please.
what exactly work we can do like to learn something? Right, like we will be free whole day, right? So, should we work on anything right now, or like after starting programming, will you give some assignments and we can work on that?
Oh, see, if you are interested, right? If you are interested, right? I will give so many tasks in every class, right? I will give
Mm-hmm.
lot of work for you. Okay. So
Yeah,
don't
so
worry
that
about
like we
this.
can learn easily, right? If we like
Yeah,
what
yeah,
exactly happened with me is, so when I started coding in like 100 days boot camp, when I'm listening for any class, it was good. When I'm like implementing in an application, like when I'm writing my code on my own, it's taking
yes.
too much time. So if I practice like multiple examples and multiple stuff from basics, I think it will be helpful to learn easily, I guess so.
With us, right, you won't get that problem because you will get chance of, right, testing the code, right, along with me, right, in the background. So, I will tell my people when I start programming part, right, I will ask all my students, right, to do the code along with me in the background. So while listening
Okay.
itself, right, when I start writing program, you also should start writing program in the background.
Okay.
Okay, so thus, right, you will be involved right into the coding. But after that, I will
Okay.
provide some assignments at the end of each class. I will give some assignments, right? You can work on it.
Yeah, that will be helpful actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, don't
If
worry.
you get any doubts, you can. Yeah.
It's not that you are asking, right? Then only I am, right? Promising you to give assignment. It's not that. It's there with us.
Yeah, I get it. I get
Okay.
it.
So, right, it's happening, right? It's happening, right, from last 7 years onwards, right? We will give some assignment work, right? People to work, right, outside the class.
Okay.
Okay. Hmm?
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Control F. Right. Yeah. So you took the screenshot, right?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. 1 minute. 1 minute. So, yeah, yeah. So Jagadish, right? Yeah. Okay. Fine. Fine. Right. Okay. Thank you, Vinay. Thank you, Ashim and Jagadish. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thank you,
your time.
Sudhakar. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye. See you in tomorrow class.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.